I see what happens is the moment that you can no longer hide, the moment that you feel like it's not enough, that's the moment you have to face the truth. And then you go into a place of sedation or discovery. You either break through or you break. And that's what I see with a lot of men right now. They're breaking because they don't have the tools to break through. They become the victim of their circumstances. They blame the government. They blame their wives. They blame the economy. They blame everyone else. But they stop looking at themselves in the mirror to take full ownership because they are the problem. We are the problem. But at the same time, we're also the solution.
So welcome to the Wake Up and Unleash podcast. Today, I am beyond excited to have such an incredible guest here with us today. I had an opportunity to meet this gentleman over 12 years ago. I don't know if he knows this. I'm sure he kind of has a clue, but I met him at a point in my life that I would probably consider one of the lowest moments of my life. I was searching for I don't even know what. And one thing led to another. I had an opportunity to go to an event in San Diego where I had the opportunity to meet him there and got an opportunity to meet his beautiful wife in an event in Las Vegas. And I have to tell you that that event in Las Vegas shifted something inside of me. He exposed me to a world of coaching that I knew existed, but had never really experienced. Since then, I'm so honored to be able to call him and his wife my friend. As you guys know, one of my core beliefs is that it matters who you have around you. It matters who is in your corner, and it matters who is in your ear. And I am just so blessed to have him and his wife in my corner for over a decade. So I'm so excited to bring here all the way from Connecticut, Mr. Raul Villacis. Raul, how are you?
Outstanding. Thank you, Karla. A pleasure, an honor, and I'm so proud of you. Like 12 years ago. Wow, it seems a lifetime.
So, there's so much that we can say about this man, but I would love for you to share briefly about your journey. When I think of you, I think of a man who's relentless, a man who is not afraid to pivot. Okay. So if you can share a little bit about your background, I know you went from real estate and then the 2008 hit, you had to pivot. And then over a decade ago, you pivoted again. And if I had to think of a man who has been able to do that, it's definitely been you. So talk to us a little bit about your background and what has you have the ability to pivot every single time that you've had to pivot in your life.
Love it. Love it. So, first of all, it's an honor to be in your podcast. I see your content, I watch you, and I see your growth. And I'm so proud of the people that you're touching, the women, the men that you're mentoring, because like you said, proximity is power. It matters who you surround yourself with. So when I was in real estate in 2008, I already had made millions of dollars. My accountant called me. Remember, he sent me an email. He said, Raul, you're 29 years old and you have all these assets. You've made it. You're like the American dream. And I have that email, and I kept on reading that email over and over again because I felt proud that I was able to create something out of nothing. I've been in real estate since I was 21 years old. I busted my ass for a decade to create this wealth, to be a good steward with what God gave me, to continue to invest. I didn't buy the fancy cars. I doubled down on real estate. I see what happens is that sometimes we have plans, but God has other plans. So the market crashed, and I saw my equity diminish little by little, and I couldn't pay for the mortgages, and I was over leveraged. And all of a sudden, I lost millions of dollars in real estate. So at that moment, I had to make my first pivot. My first pivot was like, okay, who am I if I am not this successful real estate investor? Who am I if I am not the guy who's producing money, bringing money to my family, to my house? And at that moment, I realized that I've put my whole identity based on who I was as a producer. And that's the moment I realized that I knew how to make money, but anybody could get lucky in real estate. Right? Anybody could get lucky in mortgages. Anybody could get lucky in one time. Can I build back? Can I come back from the ashes? And at that moment, I used to make fun, Carl, of people who go to personal development events. I used to say, man, those people are crazy. They need motivation. I'm self-motivated.
Do you think that has something to do with our Latino culture?
100%. 100%. I think that the upbringing that we have is that we have to be self-made, especially as a man. As a man, if you're not self-made, you're weak, right? So at that moment, I started to attend seminars, listening to, I don't know if you used to do this, like the tapes in your car. We go way back when we didn't have podcasts, we had
You're
tapes.
aging us, Raul. You're aging us. Yes, yes.
So back in those days, CDs, tapes, And at that moment, I heard somebody say, I don't know if it was Tony, I don't know if it was Jim Rohn, one of those personal development gurus said, in moments of crisis, there are always opportunities. So that hit me. I said, where is the opportunity? I'm having a crisis right now. The crisis of not having money, the crisis of losing millions, the crisis of seeing my business fail. That's the moment that I started to look for opportunities and I reframed crisis to opportunity. So my first pivot was, where are the opportunities? And I found opportunity in the default market, in the distressed market. I was buying assets that were foreclosing. So here I am, Karla, going to the court because I'm foreclosing on my properties, but at the same time, I'm buying foreclosure properties. So there's a version of me that was losing millions. There was another version of me that was determined to make millions. But these two versions have to separate because the same mindset that created the problem cannot solve the problem. So that was my first pivot. I had to reinvent myself to see the opportunities where older people saw crisis.
So one of the things I know that you talk a lot about is a man goes through a tunnel. Was that the tunnel that you went through, or was there another tunnel? Because I know then later on, about 10 years ago, you pivoted again, right? And I love what you said because we have our own plans, but God, many times, He has a whole nother plan for us. And we don't realize that until we look back, oh, that's why that happened. What happened when you pivoted again about 10 years ago that now has you, I feel, living in your purpose?
So at that moment, that was the time that I had to make a decision, right? Am I going to let my family down? Am I going to fail? Am I going to just become a victim of circumstances? Because a lot of real estate guys didn't survive. The 2008 crash crumbled a lot of men, humbled a lot of men. So within 6 months to a year, I was able to turn my business around. But Carla, what happened is I was operating from a place of scarcity. I was making money, but that trauma, that version of me that lost money was still operating and making decisions based out of fear. So those decisions also got me out of integrity because here I am. I want to help people. I got into real estate to help other people, but then I'm making money seeing people at the worst time of their lives. So that lasted a couple of years, and I actually got physically sick. Like I had a pain in my stomach that I couldn't shake. I thought I had cancer. I saw doctors, and the only thing that could numb that pain was drinking every single night. So I used to drink a half a bottle of tequila every single night just to numb that pain. Knowing what I know now, that was the pain of purpose. That was the pain of being out of alignment. That was the pain of just focusing on making money, focusing on just survival, right? So that's when I took the money that I made in real estate and invested about $500,000 to try to figure out what my purpose was, try to figure out what's my next move. How do I first heal myself because I was physically sick? Then I wanted to find out what can I do to actually live with purpose. And that's when I realized I lost my edge. I had an edge at one point in my life. I lost my edge. I was living in the tunnel. I was facing a crisis of identity. I felt depressed. I had low energy, even though I was making money. I didn't feel fulfilled because I was out of integrity. And that's the moment that I doubled down on personal development. I went to all these retreats, meditations. I went to India. I went to Fiji. I paid every guru that I could find to help me find out like what's wrong with me. And the reality is that what was wrong with me is that I was living out of integrity. I was living out of fear as opposed to living from a place of purpose.
I know that you coach all men, however, and I, coach all women, but I will tell you that hearing your story is not any different for us women. I am not ashamed to share that when I reached a lot of success in my business, I was 24 and I felt empty. And yeah, me too. I would drink one, well, it wasn't tequila. I was more classy, I guess, in my mind. I would be drinking, right, wine every single night, 1 glass, 2 glasses. Sometimes I hate to say this, like a whole bottle throughout the night, to numb the feeling of just not feeling fulfilled. And whether you're a man or a woman entrepreneur, I think this is a very common denominator from high achievers. And part of the reason I feel, and I don't know what you think about this, is that we're constantly striving for more. But if we're looking in the wrong place, it will never feel like it's enough, right? And I don't know, we're Latin, both of us, so I know that for us, at least same with your parents, is that we come from very hardworking parents, so we're always taught to, like you said, to hustle, to work, and it's like, when do you shift that from hustling and working to actually living your purpose. And I want to remind you of something, and I want to ask you a question with this, that I feel, I don't know if you remember this, but I recall, me llamó mucho la atención because it was your son that saw you living your purpose, I think, before you even really owned it. You were already doing a program. I don't know if you remember that conversation that somebody asked your son, what does your father do? And even though you were, doing the real estate and dabbling into personal development and coaching, he didn't talk about your real estate. He talked about the mission. It makes me emotional, the mission that he already saw in you. And I feel that one of the things I've learned from you is that proximity is power. And it's so important to be around people that see you bigger than you could see yourself and see you in a way that you're not capable or don't want to admit that you can see yourself as. And you've been that, like your son was that for you. You've been that for me. Like, I know that what I'm doing today, you saw over 10 years ago, and you would always tell me, and it just wasn't my time. So like, share with us, because I know you do this for hundreds, if not thousands of men now, that you could see in them what they can't see in themselves. That I feel is one of the things that you taught me was the power of proximity and being around people that can really elevate you to that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel, like you said, that you have to be self-made and you have to do it all alone. But the reality is you can't go far, and you cannot go far with purpose if you're all by yourself.
So let me tell you, once I started realizing that I was lacking purpose, fulfillment, I was lacking something, right? That's when I was open to hear God's voice to guide me, right? So I remember God planting a seed saying, you have to put an event, you have to do a seminar, you have to really, figure out what your purpose is, right? And I went to a fundraiser in New York, and I met this guy, Burnett Bain. I know that you know Burnett. And he was on stage, and he was raising money for a movie by Eckhart Tolle, the book, The New Earth. I never heard of Eckhart Tolle. I never knew anything about the consciousness movement. So I was there as a businessman. I'm in real estate. I'm developing businesses. So from the stage, he comes out. We cross paths. I introduced myself, and he asked me, like, what do I do? And Karla, I don't know if it was me trying to impress him or it was, God putting that seed on me and said, well, I'm in the personal development business. I'm putting a mastermind together in Vegas. So let me know if you could attend. I would love to have you speak and help you raise some money for your movie. He said, absolutely, man. I would love to attend. Here's my number. Here's my text. Let me know. I walked away from that meeting. I looked at my wife. I was like, what the fuck was that? That was not even in the plans. I was just something that came out of me, right? So I said, listen, I probably was just trying to, look cool or position myself. He said, I'm nobody. He's probably gonna forget about me, right? Then the next week, he calls me up because I give him my card. He goes, hey, Raul, I'd like to support you. Tell me about your event. He texted me, he emailed me, he left me tons of messages. I was embarrassed, so I had to call him back and say, hey, you know what? It's a real estate event. You wouldn't be interested. A bunch of unconscious men. I know that you probably not connected with our message. No, Raul, something tells me that I have to support you. I'm there. Just tell me what it is, and I'll be there. That's the time that I reach out to you. I reach out to Garrett. I reach out to a bunch of people to attend that event because now I had to put an event together that wasn't there before. And I'm sharing this because God is putting people in your life to help you step into your purpose, to help you step into what you're called to be. So that event was my first event that you went to, and I had no idea what I was doing. I remember sharing my story about drinking, sharing my story about my breakthrough, and then me having a conversation later with God saying, God, I'm not ready to do this. I'm not ready to be this vulnerable. I'm not ready to have people know, my business. Let me just be in real estate for a little more. And I remember him saying, if you don't take this opportunity now, it may never come to you. So that resonated. At that moment, I had to step in because if you don't step into your purpose when you've been called, you may never have another opportunity. The gap may never open again. And maybe years later on, it will open. But at that moment, I knew that I had to do something. So then coming back, talking to my son about, what we did, and he saw that vision. He was the one who was telling people, my dad puts seminars. After one seminar, my dad talks all over the world. He helps men. So I'm sharing this because God knows exactly what you need. And sometimes we want God to speak to us directly. He's not going to speak to you directly. He's going to put people in your life that will see who you could become, who God made you to be.
Yeah. And when you shared that story about your son, the other day I was thinking, I was like, because I was thinking about this day, and I was thinking, it's true. If we are, sometimes we need to just realize that I'll say it like this. I have learned that it's when I surrender that things happen. And as entrepreneurs, at least for me, we're drivers. So it's like, I want to push, I want to make happen. And that's beautiful. And I think all of us need to go through that, because then when that happens, you realize, well, that's exhausting. And, the other day, it's so crazy that you're sharing. I did not know that story about Burnett, and that's how you created that event in Las Vegas. But it's something so interesting, because a couple of weeks ago, I hosted a Diamonds and Pearls entrepreneur brunch, and I put it together in 3 weeks. I just wanted 10, 15 girls to come together. To not give you all the details, God said, go to this event. I went to this event. One of my entrepreneur students was there. I told her the vision. She said, let's do it at my restaurant. I'm like, oh my gosh. It ended up being 50 women. And I have to tell you that morning, Raul, that Sunday, I was working out before the brunch, just thanking God for all the blessings. And I can hear God talk to me. And he literally said, ¿Tú crees que este evento es tuyo? He said, do you think this event is yours? Like, I created that because God has given me very specific instructions a year ago. And he said, I need you to wake up, Karla, wake up and unleash the woman I created you to be, so that you can wake up and unleash the women around you to bring them back to me. And I remember thinking, Raul, like, wait, what? Like, I've always believed in God, but I mean, come on, that is a big responsibility. And nevertheless, because I heard the voice and I was obedient, I put this brunch together, not knowing what I was doing, and it ended up being a real beautiful success. But it's like those moments of testing. I always feel like God is looking down going, vamos a ver, chaparrita, like, let me see, shorty, if you're going to listen. And he's constantly testing. And when we just surrender and listen, so much has happened, right? And I know that that's been something that I have from afar witnessed you transform thousands of men. But I was thinking this morning, your impact is not even in the thousands. It must be in the hundreds of thousands, because every man that you help and transform, there's a ripple effect, right? And one of the things that I know that you teach all these men is not only how to, go within and find their edge, but also how to live a purposeful life, not just with business, but also with their family, and how that impacts their business. And I don't think, at least in the Latin culture, that we ever look at it. I don't know about the other cultures, right? But that we think of it like that, like, oh, wow, what do you mean if I don't get along with my wife, that's going to impact my business? I had no idea, Raul, that men suffer so much because they're constantly hiding and lying. Talk to me a little bit about that.
See, I believe that men right now are in a crucial turning point, especially men who are 50 years old. They have to make a decision. You have to decide, am I going to leave a legacy of abundance, or am I going to leave a legacy that destroys my family? Because see, the idea of a man becoming successful, having money, or having what the culture calls success is no longer sustainable. What do you get if you conquer your business but you lost your wife? What do you get if you conquer your business and you lost your health? What do you get if you conquer your business and you lost your soul? At the end of the day, men have to start looking at their life in a holistic way, not just in one dimensional. The moment that a man takes full ownership, knowing that he's the problem, but he's also the solution, he can realize that he has the calling, he has the duty. Like, God gave him one assignment: create a legacy. Create that legacy. He gave man dominion in his family. So when a man hits a certain age, he has to make a decision. Am I going to create a legacy? I'm going to continue to play the game of being a warrior. I believe that the warrior is just looking for getting paid and getting laid. The world is just looking for significance. I see you see a lot of men who in their 50s, 60s, even 70s living that warrior's lifestyle because nobody ever told them how to continue to grow and grow in their level of consciousness to become the king. The king to me is a man who has a legacy of abundance, not just in business, but abundance in love, abundance in connection, abundance in the way that he treats his women, abundance in the way that he creates his path with his kids. Unfortunately, we have not been taught that. Unfortunately, men have been conditioned just to be a lone ranger, but the lone ranger is always the weakest one. We pretend that we're strong because we could mask everything with success. Money hides a lot of the problems that we have inside. A lot of the traumas, money could hide it. I see what happens is the moment that you can no longer hide, the moment that you feel like it's not enough, that's the moment you have to face the truth. And then you go into a place of sedation or discovery. You either break through or you break. And that's what I see with a lot of men right now. They're breaking because they don't have the tools to break through. They become the victim of their circumstances. They blame the government. They blame their wives. They blame the economy. They blame everyone else. But they stop looking at themselves in the mirror to take full ownership because they are the problem. We are the problem. But at the same time, we're also the solution.
I know that, you coach men, but everything you're saying, I can totally relate. And I could see how so many of my I work with 6-7 figure entrepreneur women. And unfortunately, a lot of us have to tap into the masculine part of ourselves, right? And to be able to create that kind of business. And for us, it's like, well, I'm tired of being the provider or being the driver. We want to step into our feminine energy. So like el reto, the challenge is the same. It's just a little different. Where for you, it's for men, it's like, okay, let me just keep providing. Let me keep making more money, right? And when that happens, I feel that at least, look, here's what happened to me, okay? A couple of years ago, I completely lost myself. I just moved back to LA, being a single mom and now having to figure out this whole new way of being, like a whole new way of life, really. I had to look at myself and say, like, what happened to me? Because like a lot of the men that you coach, I lost my edge. And I know that I'm capable because I've created a lot of success in my business. But in that process, I lost myself into my motherhood, I lost myself. I gained a lot of weight, just all this stuff. And it wasn't until I had a wake up call and, things started to shift. For the people that are listening to this, whether they're men or women, they could really, tap into what are the things that you teach the men that you coach to shift when the moment comes and says, I'm done hiding, lying, sedating, pretending, right? All this stuff. What is that code that you teach them to have them shift their life?
See, I believe a lot of men, what they're afraid of, most men are afraid of not being enough. Most men are afraid of failure. And the reason they don't share their struggles is because we're seen as being weak, especially the moment that we start sharing our struggles with our wives. See, imagine the feminine energy wants certainty. But when the man doesn't have certainty, where does he go? He can't go to the feminine energy because now the feminine energy is going to take that feedback and now it's going to shift to become masculine. So what happens is when a man is vulnerable and he has fear, if he confines in the feminine and the feminine doesn't know how to handle that, she becomes the masculine and it shifts roles. That's why men have to go to other men and share their weaknesses, because when a masculine hits with another masculine, then we stop playing the victim. When I tell another man my fears or the shit that I'm going through, he's not going to feel sorry for me. He's going to let me see what the possible solution is. But if I tell my wife all my fears, if I tell my wife all my insecurities, she's going to be afraid. She's going to be scared. And now she's going to turn into the masculine. And that's what I see. A lot of men don't have the support system with a brotherhood that allows them to share their weaknesses, share their pain without being judged, without having pity, but just hold the space for them to see the mirror. The mirror that you created this problem, you created this mess, you could actually get out of this mess if you make the right choices. Now, what women do is they want to protect their man. They want to cuddle their man. And all of a sudden, they shift into the mother energy. If you have a masculine man, it's just a matter of time that if your mother energy will turn him into a sedative warrior, especially if he's killed in his business. He's putting everything that he has in his business. He doesn't have the energy to come back home and to argue with his wife. So if he looks for a mother figure, it kills passion. It kills that connection. So what I teach men is that you got to become the container. You got to be the same way that you in your business. You have to have the same intensity in your marriage, because if it doesn't happen, you're going to lose that energy field. You're going to lose the frame. But also, I teach men you have to be the container for the feminine energy, but you cannot be the garbage can. A lot of women, what they do is they want to just dump on the man that he's not doing enough, he's not providing enough, and at the end of the day, you beat down the man so much that he has no energy to be lifted up. So it's a balance between lifting him up and seeing what he could do, but at the same time not cuddling him, not being the mother, but just making a decision of having his back. I see a lot of women who just give up on their men way too easy, or they tolerate shit from their man, and all of a sudden they are cuddling him as opposed to empowering him. But I tell men all the time, the moment that you don't feel connected with your wife, the moment that you feel that there's no more passion, it's up to you to continue to seduce her, to put all the effort, to give every ounce of energy that you have outside of your business. But if there is no reciprocation, if she can't return the favor, you can't just continue to stay in a relationship because of the kids or because of what people would say. Why? Because that is torture. You're not feeding yourself, you're not feeding her, and eventually you're going to ruin a possibility of your legacy with your kids, because they're seeing that. I'd rather you just take ownership and work on yourself, and have her take ownership, work on herself, in order for you guys to come back together if that's God's will. If not, you have to learn how to coexist together with the kids. But I truly believe that love is not enough. Like, I love my wife. My wife loves me, but I know that the moment that I stop providing for her, the moment that I stop providing her emotionally, financially, and holding the space for her, just a matter of time that we disconnect. So we're not promised tomorrow. Nothing is promised. You have to continue. Just like in business, if I stop running for my clients, it's a matter of time they stop paying me. So we have this belief that once we get married, all of a sudden she's going to love you forever, or he's going to love you forever. But that's what happens with marriages. We stop working on ourselves. We continue to tolerate shit that no longer serves us. And then we wonder why we're not happy.
Okay, so I'm from Mexico, and one of the things every time my cousins or somebody would get married, I would hear my mom's generation of women advise the new bride. And now that I'm aware of a lot of things, I'm like, oh my gosh, all the advice was of tolerance, of acceptance. And one of the things that I would hear my mom's generation say all the time, they would say, I'm going to say this in Spanish. They would say, mira, mija, nomás te tengo un consejo. Aguanta. Aguanta. How do you say that in English, Raul?
Tolerate.
Exactly.
Tolerate it. Yep.
I would hear, and I remember being young, every wedding, I would hear my tias, my aunts, tell the new bride, like, mija, just aguanta. And fast forward, now, I'm 40. Well, actually, I'm very proud of my age. I'm 40. I'm going to be 48 in a couple of weeks. I now think, and I think, my gosh, like, that was the advice that, that I would hear all the time. It was never échale ganas, like, give it all you got, invest in your marriage. The other day, somebody said to me, well, that's just what happens with marriage. That's just what happens. And I remember, thinking like, well, why? Right? And one of the things that I've heard you say, and I would love for you to talk about this, because I'm not a guy, so I don't think like that. But you were sharing, one of the things I heard is that, men think of return. So like, the moment that you can associate just the way, you have to invest in your business if you want to see it grow, you have to invest in, marketing, and invest in your business, period, if you want to see it grow and scale. Like, and I think a lot of us, we understand that, I've never heard anybody say, just the way that you invest in your business, you have to see your relationship with your significant other as an investment. That the more I invest in trips, I know that you and Vivian do this, going out on dates, going on date night, things like that, that you can associate that with the return in the investment. And it's going to spill over not only in your life, but also in your business and in your bank account. Talk to me about that, because I've never heard anybody say that. And I'm like, man, I grew up thinking you just have to tolerate and you just have to accept this is the way it is, rather than thinking like, hey, you got to date, you have to invest anything that is worth having. You got to pour time and energy and money into it.
I think a lot of people who are married, they underestimate the power of the ROE, return on energy. See, I believe everything is energy. Money is energy, sex is energy, impact is energy. See, you're blessed that you have a partner that you could actually feed off his or her energy. The moment that we're not tapping into the ROE, the return on energy from a partner, then our energy is going to be focusing on different things. That's why a lot of men wonder of their marriage, because they're looking for energy somewhere else. They're not tapping into the energy source that they already have at home. So we always think that the grass is greener on the other side. Well, you're leaking energy. You're spending your focus. So the moment that you derail from your marriage and you're taking a look at somebody else's, another woman, you're feeding from her feminine energy, but you're not paying attention to your woman's feminine energy. And that creates a condition in your mind that it's okay for you to go to porn. It's okay for you to look at somebody else. It's okay for you to do all these things. It's just a matter of time that energy takes you to take action. That's what for us is we constantly are looking at, how do I have the ROE with each other? How do I reconnect with my wife? Because I know it's just a matter of time. If I don't feed her and she doesn't feed me, I'm starting to wander somewhere else. So for us, everything is energy. If I don't have a solid relationship with my wife, if we're not connecting, it's just a matter of time that my business is going to take a hit. It's just a matter of time that my health is going to take a hit. And if I don't invest in my relationship, that means I don't invest in my business. So I look at both the same amount of time and energy I'm investing in my business, same amount of energy I'm investing in my wife and my kids. Why? Because that's a return on energy. Because for me, if my kids are good and my wife is good, that just gives me enough bandwidth to actually conquer more in my business. But if I don't have the energy with my kids and my wife, anything that happens in my business is going to take me off my tracks. So when I teach men to empower their wives and their kids to have a return on energy based on their relationships, when they have that, they could conquer anything that goes into their business. I have guys who right now going through a storm, losing millions of dollars because of the economy, but they have solid relationships that could conquer anything. And they're excited and they actually figure things out, because there's nothing worse than a man going through shit in his business and doesn't have a solid foundation. Now you have two leaks. Now you have two leaks of energy, your business and your marriage, and then your health is going to come right behind it. So I always constantly look at, where do I have the biggest return on energy? What can I control? The easiest return on energy is relationships. It is the easiest and is the hardest. Why? Because you don't get immediate return right away. You put deposits in, but the return is exponential once you dial that in.
Yeah, and I bet it takes a lot of time, especially if the relationship, it's like a plant, right? If you have not watered that plant for a long time, the leaves are all dried up. It still has life, but it's, you water it one time and you can't be like, it's like, no, you've neglected this plant for so long. It's going to take time and it's going to take patience. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because, as you know, most of my audience are entrepreneur women. And the women that I coach and that I'm surrounded with are very driven entrepreneur kind of women that most of the time, if not almost always, they're the drivers in their home, or they're like the breadwinners, or they're the ones that are making things happen. When you have a man in your life, what do you see based on all the men that you coach? I'm sure a lot of the men that you have very powerful, driven women that are on their side. What are the things and advice that you could give us women that are drivers, that we don't want to lose our edge? Like, I love that side of me. I love producing, and I don't want to be there all the time. Like, I want to be able to come home and be like, now I get to get taken care of. What is the advice that you can give women like that are married or that are looking to be with a very high producing man?
So I run across this a lot, and I tell women all the time, you have to choose your role. Just because you're making most of the money, just because you're the breadwinner, just because you're the powerhouse, unless you are willing to submit to your man, it's not going to work. Even if he doesn't make as much money as you do, he has to lead. See, what happens is if you don't have a man as a leader in the relationship, he's not going to fulfill his role as a man. So he's always going to feel less than. He might tell you it's okay. He might tell you, you know what, go get your money. I'll take care of the kids. Always in the back of his head, he's going to feel like he's not enough. But if you give him dominion, if you give him, here's what I'm doing. What should we do? How can we co-create this together? I believe that a man and a woman could become a power couple the moment that a man knows his role and he's in power, and a woman knows her role and she's in power, they could become a power couple. But if you need your man and he needs you, there's two needy energies. So you have to empower him to let him be and let him lead. And if he makes mistakes, let him fall and let him and pick him right back. The biggest thing that I say with women is they don't want their men to make mistakes. So therefore, you again go back to the mother energy, right? The biggest thing that Vivian let me do is she let me fail. She held the space. She let me fail, so I could come back up stronger. Like for what she has done for me, she's hold the space for me for actually so I could go and do what I was born to do. And she's a powerhouse. My wife is an alpha woman. I mean, when she goes to the room, she has presence, but she's no less than me. I am no less than her. But at the end of the household, she knows that like if Raul is going to lead, I need to let him lead. I can't second guess him. Now she puts insights. She gives me the details. She gives me the information that I need to have in order for me to make decisions. But at the end, it's on the man to lead. And I know a lot of women have a problem with that because now we live in this world that like you guys want to be in power, but you also want to be taken care of, right? But you can't have both things. You gotta you have to surrender in order for him to take care of you. And the best thing I tell you could do for a man is praise is oxygen. The little things. I'm not talking about fake praise, real praise. Vivian, she tells me, take out the garbage. And the moment I take out the garbage, she's like, oh, I see your muscles. You're so strong. I love seeing you, take out the garbage. Just little things like that. Praising the man for the little things that he does, it goes a long way. Because we're in the battlefield every single day and we get beat up. We want to come home and we want to have three things. Number one is peace. If you could bring peace to a man's house, man, we value peace above everything. Number two is respect. When a man feels that he has respect, sometimes we value more respect than even love. We'd rather be respected than love. And the last thing is sex. It doesn't have a man needs sex, a man needs intimacy, a man needs to know that he's wanted, right? And a lot of the times what happens with all the men is that because they don't have that at home, they look for that outside the home. They look for praise in their business. They look for respect in their business, and maybe they settle with a sexless marriage because they don't want to go outside their marriage. But if you give a man peace, respect, and keep him happy, that man is going to conquer the world for you. But you have to have those real conversations of who's running the household and hold them accountable. Now, that's not to say that, okay, you're in charge and you constantly fuck up. No, hold them accountable. Let him fail, let him fall, but ask him, what are you going to do to fix this? When I lost millions of dollars, my wife didn't say, oh, it's going to be okay, baby. She's like, how are you going to fix this? Like, I will go and live under a bridge if I have to, but I know it's not going to be forever. Go out there and fucking fix this. So she held me accountable so I could do what I need to do.
You know, one of the things that you said, and that is that I want to touch on this because I think a lot of my audience could probably relate, and that is that a lot of the times, if you're the woman that's like you're saying, you're with somebody that you don't necessarily like respect, or they're not stepping up, and you're having to step up, like you're saying, and then later on we become a mom, right? And no healthy man wants to have sex with their mother. So that energy starts to it almost, I feel like that's why a lot of marriages become sexless, because it's like te da asco because she's now no longer your lover. She's no longer your wife. She's become your mother. She's become your caretaker. And it's like a healthy man is not going to be physically, sexually attracted to his mom. It's like, I don't want to get into bed with her. So, how if somebody is in that space, how do they turn that around, especially because I can already hear some women say, well, I would love for him to lead, but he just doesn't. I've given him opportunity and he won't step up, and with some of us say like, give him his balls back. Okay. It's a little vulgar, but it's like, give him his balls back. And then sometimes I hear women say, I've given them back to him, pero he doesn't want to have them. He's just wants to be a bum on the couch or whatever, right? What would you say? How can that even be switched? And if so, how?
So the only way a man could change is if he has pain. And unfortunately, a lot of these men don't have enough pain because they're comfortable. But see, what happens is when a man hits a certain level of age, 40s, 50s, 60s, the pain that he has is from life experience. The pain of regret is the biggest motivator. The pain of regretting not being with their kids, regretting not building a business, regretting of not having a wife and kids, that regret is going to hit him. So when a man is in his 20s, he has plenty of time. When a man is in his 30s, he thinks he has time. When a man is in his 40s, he knows he's running out of time. When a man is in his 50s, if he doesn't have his shit together, he knows that he only has a certain amount of time to make it happen. At the end of the day, regret is the bigger motivator than anything else. Like regret is the fuel. So when a man turns pain into fuel, then he could conquer the game back. But a woman cannot do that for a man. Unfortunately, man has to face his harsh realities. And sometimes women stay with a man too long that he doesn't have pain. The biggest thing that you could do is let him know that you're not going to tolerate this. And he's going to have to find the pain and then he's going to come back or not come back. But I believe a woman, like when a woman said, I could make this man, I don't think the woman could make the man. The man has to make that decision. He has to want to change. Because if he doesn't, if he's doing it for you, then he has a different problem. But if he's doing it for himself because he wants to, because he fears that he's not becoming the man that he could be, then that could create a lasting change. And you know what I've experienced is that maybe women don't have that influence as much as their kids have influence on the man. Like for me, my kids, my biggest influence. I shifted many times because of the regret that I don't want my kids to know as a dated man. You know what? I stopped drinking because my son saw me drunk. And I showed to him, like, this is the last time you're going to see me this way. This is the last time you're never going to know a man that is out of control. So the moment you make decisions based on who you're going to become, based on who you love the most, and the kids have a great leverage against a father.
It's so true because I think like, one of my drivers in life is two things. One is I always think about, because I'm going to go to heaven, Raul, when I get there and have God say like, what happened, Karla? Like, I'm going to tell you something. I was in Dana Point. 2024 was a big year of transformation for me. And this is not very ladylike, but I'm going to tell you exactly what God said to me. I was sitting there typing and just really, I was complaining and in my diary. And then I just heard God say like, when he speaks in Spanish to me, because that's my native language, it just hits differently, right? But I'm going to say it in English. He was like, Karla, I gave you so many gifts and so many talents. And what the fuck are you doing with them? And I remember like typing, going, and then he said, don't make me take them away from you. That day really woke me up because it made me think of two things. One, when I go to heaven and God says, ¿Qué pasó? Like, what happened? Like, you could have done this and I wanted you to do that and impact this person and have these experiences. And Karla, like, that's one of my fears. And my second fear is letting my son down. Like, having him grow up and see, like, wow, my mom could have, should have, but didn't. And the reason why that's one of my fears is because then I feel like, because I personally want to live my life in integrity, meaning like the best that I can. I'm still human, but it's like, how do I tell him to do something, be someone, step up into his full power if he never saw that being modeled in me? And I never realized, because I'm not a guy, that that is one of the drivers that could really pivot a man that's maybe listening to this, or maybe you're a woman and you're having a man in your life. Send them this podcast, because I think sometimes we don't realize that, at least I did not realize that the opposite sex, meaning you men, face a lot of these challenges, but you guys just never really talk about them the way women do, right? We have our little, we go to the bathroom in a clan, right? So we talk about these things. And I never realized that that could be the wake up call for a man, is his children, even more so than his wife, or even more so than himself, really, right?
I tell you what I've experienced. Every high achiever has the same pattern. We always feel that we're not doing enough, that we don't have enough, and we constantly beat ourselves down. As soon as we wake up, 80% of our thoughts are negative thoughts. And 80% of our thoughts come from the shit that we didn't do yesterday or the day before. So we're already behind the eight ball. So we have to train our mind to look at the things that we're actually winning at. So I have a process every morning. I call it my focus journal. I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. I write down what I'm excited about and what I'm going to focus on. And I start the day with that. What am I grateful for? What I'm going to focus on? And what am I excited about? Just those things that I write down just instantly rewire my subconscious brain. Then I have a whole different crazy ritual when I go into meditation, when I tap into gratitude, I practice visualizing who I'm becoming. But then I do something that not a lot of people do, which is tap into that fear. Most men are afraid of seeing their darkness. Most men are afraid to actually feel what it feels like to fail, not to have money, not to foreclose on their properties, to lose a child, to lose your kid. So I imagine that, Karla. I imagine like my kids dying. I imagine my wife dying. I imagine like losing everything. So I take myself to that place in a meditative state, and then I let it go. I realize that's all an illusion. Like the mind just creates all the stories about the illusion, that the reality is that all the fears that we have are an illusion in our minds. That the only place that we have power is in the present moment. So then from that place, I ask myself, what can I do today to get closer to what God wants me to do? So it's not about knowing everything. It's about just being present enough to conquer your fears of today. Tomorrow, I'll conquer them again. And the next day again. So it's a never-ending cycle. But we have to stop running away from fear. Every man, every woman has fear. The enemy wants to control you by having fears. One of my favorite books is the book called Outwitting the Devil. And that book talks about how the enemy controls men and women with fear. So I have a mantra. I actually have it here in a bracelet that says, not today, motherfucker, not today. So every single time that I have that whisper in my ear about not being enough, I tell them, not today, motherfucker, not today. Today I choose purpose. Today I choose to listen to God. Today I choose to fulfill my vision. Because at the end of the day, if you're living on fear, you are the enemy's weapon. Because you are giving that to everybody around you.
I have to say something, because I've watched you, and I'm sure you have fear, right? Because you're human, but I've watched you, in my eyes, live a fearless life. I remember, I don't know where we were, Raul. We were at a party, and desapareciste. You like disappeared, and all of a sudden you were on stage. I don't know if you remember this, with the DJ, with the mic. And I remember telling Vivian, like, what? And she's like, ay, Raul, right? Then we went to LA Live, and there was a race. I mean, you make things happen. Whatever. I've honestly have seen you place yourself in positions and in places of power that, I mean, honestly, that's not your place, but you make it your place, right? Like that race in LA Live, we had this huge race. You came out in the magazine, you were in the front cover, and how do you, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, so many of us want to be that courageous. We want to go up on stage and grab the mic. We want to be at the red carpet at the Oscars. We want to do all these things, but that voice wins us over and it has so much power over us. How do you break? Because I've seen you do it, break through that even when you feel it.
Every single morning, I fight that battle. And then every morning, I kill that motherfucker. That motherfucker that is in fear, that motherfucker has doubts. Every morning, my job is to eliminate him from my life because it doesn't serve me. So it doesn't mean that the next morning he's gonna come back again. As a matter of fact, he comes back even stronger, right? So it is all conditioning. We have to learn how do we kill that version of us that lives in fear. Now, you can't get rid of him. That's our sinful nature. You know what the enemy did for us is he separated us from God. And if you look at scripture, the biggest thing that the enemy did is make us believe that God is not connected with us, right? So that we're separate, that God is over here and we're over here, right? And we start realizing that we are a reflection of God, that we are his creation. We stop praying like a needy child and I start praying like a co-creator with God. So every time I'm in those situations, I ask myself, like, God is putting me here for a reason. I'm going to find out what that reason is. So I channel that version of me that is being a conduit. A conduit means like it's channeling energy that is flowing. So if God wants me to be there, I'm going to be there. Who am I to say, no, I don't belong here? Who am I to say I cannot do this? Who am I to say like that's not for me? Like the negative mind says that. The condition of maybe the Latin culture says that. Maybe the condition of being a man says that. Maybe the condition of having an accent says that, right? But see, God will use every single man and woman that gets out of their fucking way. Because that's all we need to do. Just get out of the fucking way. Had a conversation. Actually, I had my last event. I was on the stage. We had about 150 men in the event. And I was, before getting the stage, I asked God, I said, God, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I have my frame. I have some stuff that I want to share with these guys. And I heard him say, it's not about you could do. Watch me what I'm going to do. And then when I went in there and I created this process, I saw a man and his son hug and just break through and just like cry and just connected. And that's the moment that you see, you can't do that. That's not you. See, that is me. That is like you. We have to become a conduit of God because all the negative beliefs that we have, all the conditions that we have prevents us from being the conduit. So every single day, what I do is I continue to prime myself, condition myself to just get out of the fucking way. And the last 10 years, I've built this version of me that taps into that. Like the next 10 years, it's going to be a different version of me. So every single day, Karla, this is a never ending, this is an infinite game. Every single day, we have to make sure that we're going back into the source which is God.
You know, I think one of the things I'm hearing you say is that one, accept that this is just the nature of the game, right? And, you know, I was raised Catholic, and luckily my parents never really like forced me to go to church. My parents would always say, Dios está aquí, Dios está aquí. God is here, God is in your heart. And I would only call on him when I needed him. Like my keys are in my car. God, please open the vehicle, right? And things like that when I needed him. And it wasn't until last year that I actually, you know, picked up the Bible and would read it every single day. And half of the time I had no idea what I was reading. But the times that I would just meditate and quiet my voice, I would read right around 4:30 in the morning. I would literally hear him and I would feel his presence. You know, and one of the things that I'm getting from what you're saying is like, well, first of all, I have to confess, I haven't been as consistent this year, 2025, as I was last year. And so no wonder it's like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym, get fit, have, I don't know, a six pack, a chiseled back, and then be like, all right, I'm good. I'm going to stop going to the gym. It's like, no, because that's what gives you those results. That's what we should keep doing. And that's what I'm really getting present to what you're saying. It's like, this is a battle that we're never going to stop facing, but it's the conditioning of doing it every single day that the muscle, I'm sure now you can, like me, I can snap out of myself out of anything because I've done it so many times. And, you know, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, at least I know for myself, once we hit the high, we're like, all right, we're good. And then we almost get a thrill of crashing so we can rebuild. I mean, I've built my business, Raul. I got up, I hit my business by the age of 24. In 13 months, I hit $1 million in sales. And 5 months later, it was almost to nothing. But I was like, I can do it again. And I've done that 3 different times. And I have to admit that there's this rush of building again and building again and building again until I'm like, that's exhausting. It's so much easier. It's more work, but it's easier to actually just maintain because it's doing the boring stuff, right? I know that one of the things as we complete this interview, I would love before we get off here is for you to share with us 2 things. And one is, I know that you have this whole movement of men, and I personally love what you're doing because I have personally witnessed, although us women are powerful, the power of a man in the household is unexplainable. So I would love for you to share with the audience, like if somebody who's a man or somebody that they know of a man that would love to go to your programs, how can they do that and what would they experience?
In the last 10 years, the main thing that I've been focused on is to build a tribe of men that helps each other sharpen their edge. Because see, the reality is that most men are lone rangers. And when you're in your 20s, when you're 30s, you have a lot of friends. You have a lot of acquaintances. You want to be friends with everybody. The moment that you hit your 50s, you're very exclusive about who you surround yourself with. And I believe that a lot of men in their 50s, they don't have true connection. They might have business partners, they might have associates, but they don't really have a tribe that could actually be vulnerable, that they could really share their darkest secrets, their fears, their insecurities, because there's power in that. Because the moment you realize that you're not the only one going through it, you're going to see other powerful men overcome the challenges. So that's what I've done. Build a tribe of men who have the edge and they're sharpening the edge. See, I believe that most men at the end of their lifetime, they're going to wonder what the legacy is, and it's all going to be based on what they did between the age of 40 and 60. Those 2 decades are going to define the legacy. But if they don't have the right people in their lives that will help them not make the mistakes that most men make, they could destroy their families, they could destroy their business. So for me, I'm passionate about leadership. I'm helping men become better leaders, better husbands, better entrepreneurs. And I'm actually helping women one pen at a time. Every man that I coach impacts thousands of people. The most important thing is that we talk about the power of having unity. When a man and a woman own themselves, they have power between each other, they become a power couple. So I'm excited. We have an event coming up in April. If anybody from your tribe wants to connect with me, send it my way. I'd love to have some more men sharpen their edge.
Absolutely. So we'll make sure we'll put all the links here in the description. And before I want to have you say the last words, I just want to personally thank you because, well, first of all, I want to thank you and Vivian because 12 years ago in that Vegas, event where I got to speak on stage and I had no idea what I was doing. I got to meet the most incredible people that also contributed dramatically into my life. Garrett being one of them. He's who, I walked by his side all last year and he really helped to wake me up more than anything. But I have to tell you, one of the things that I want to thank you for so much is that anytime that I have reached out, you have always been there for me. And whether it's a text or a voice message or an actual call, I know that is, your time is valuable. And I want you to know that I appreciate that so much. All those words that you have said to me from back in 10 years ago, you telling me, Karla, you need to, because I used to be the director of an entrepreneur program partnered with USC. And you used to always tell me, you need to do your own thing. But that voice, right? And it was in my time, but that voice would always win me over. And here I am, I remember the day that I decided that I was taking that leap of faith. I was sitting in my car in the driveway and you were the call that I made. I said, okay, I'm doing this. And you said, it's about time. So I want to say,
love it.
you.
I can't wait to see who you impact the next 5 to 10 years, Karla, because this is the game that you have to play. It's a long game. A lot of entrepreneurs, they quit because they want the short game. I've been doing this for 12 years. I didn't just show up, yesterday with a podcast, right? But you have to pay the price. And Karla, you've paid the price. Now it's time for you to reap the benefits by just showing up. So 3 things I will leave your audience with. Number 1 is the most consistent man and woman always wins. It's not always the smartest. It's not always the prettiest. It's not always the one who has the most money. It's the one that's most consistent. And I'm talking about consistently on growth. The one that's consistent in themselves. The one that's constantly asking God to pour onto them. The second thing is, if you don't have a daily ritual, meaning a daily habit, something that you do, you react into life. Nothing for me is reactive. Everything I do is intentional. Because the moment I become more intentional, I'm going to have more results. And the third thing, if you don't have the right tribe around you, you're going to fail. There is zero upside of doing life alone. There's zero upside of trying to be the lone ranger, of the lone woman. You need to have a tribe. You need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in mentors. You need to invest in events, because the biggest investment you can make is in yourself. Right now, AI is changing the game. There's no shortage of information. You're going to have all kinds of information. But the shortage of is real men and women that will guide you through the information so you can actually take action. The highest level of accountability is being around a mentor or a coach that's living this. So I believe, Karla, you're living this. You're not just talking about it. You just didn't come out of the blue trying to figure this thing out. You're living this. And through your journey of life, you're impacting people's lives. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I wish you the best. And I know 10 years from now, I'm going to look back at this podcast as like the beginning of your movement.
I got to send you my first podcast with you 11 years ago. So thank you so much, Raul. And for everybody here, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to wake up and unleash that woman you know you have inside. Have a blessed day.